Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levy. And today we're going to talk about UFC 315, Belal Muhammad versus Della, Maddalena. And my friends, it's going down this Saturday night live at the Bell Center in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. Used to be the home of GSP, but now we got the Arabic GSP, Belal Muhammad, putting his welterweight title on the line against the streaking, emerging Della, Maddalena. So we're going to get right into it. And then after I break down these fights, we're going to take a little recap of Iowa last week, talk about the stunt of the year contender Bo Nickel pulled and all that. And then Wednesday night, live at 7 p.m. Eastern time, I'm going to be joined by three amazing guests to break down UFC 315 in depth like we always do. But for now, I decided to give y'all a little early preview. So let's get down to business. Because in this main event, we got the champ, Belal Muhammad. He's 24-3, taking on the challenger, Della, Maddalena, who is 17-2. Currently, they got it. Belal Muhammad, minus 210. The comeback on Della, Maddalena is plus 180. So a lot of Half the Battle fans know that I've been a big backer of Belal Muhammad at the betting window. And the biggest thing about it was, we'll talk about his skills here in a second, but it was always a case where he was so overlooked that it was like he'd be the underdog almost every single fight. There'd be zero recency bias, zero market overcorrection, always value. Like that was literally the case. So you could just come out here, bet Belal Muhammad like every single fight. He'd be a short favorite against guys he should be a large favorite against, and he'd be an underdog against fighters he should be a favorite against. So it was really one of the most profitable angles in all of MMA betting to bet on Belal Muhammad. What's happened now is that there finally is a little recency bias. Now you finally do have to pay that premium price on Belal Muhammad. Now there is a market overcorrection. So from a betting perspective, that makes things a little bit tricky. But let me break down the stylistics first, because Belal Muhammad, at the beginning of the show, I called him an Arabic GSP, and that's not me being funny. That's me being serious, because this guy is so well-rounded, and he's got different approaches for every single person he faces. Like in that Randy Brown fight, man, those entries to those double legs right to that back take that Belal likes to do. And the reason I bring up the Randy Brown fight is because that was a long time ago, and he was already doing that. Now you fast forward to the Leon fight, and he was doing the same thing. I mean, that initial takedown, oh my God, the timing was so beautiful. And one thing that Belal doesn't get enough credit for, actually, and some people might laugh at this, is actually his hands. Let me explain what I mean. Because as of right now, he's only got that TKO win over Sean Brady, which, by the way, I think the ref robbed Belal Muhammad of a highlight reel knockout. It was a standing TKO. Had the ref not stopped it when he did, I think Sean Brady would have went down, and it would have actually been an even bigger win for Belal Muhammad. But no matter what, handing Sean Brady his first and only ever defeat up until this point, that's definitely something to be reckoned with and not something to understate. Another example of Belal's hands are in that Leon fight, in that first round, right? Everybody only remembers the wrestling, which was great because, later in the fight, he did that high crotch takedown where he picked him up and slammed him on his head. But one thing I really liked about Belal's hands in that first round, and just the entire fight, but specifically that first round against Leon, is Leon was so mesmerized by the threat of the takedown that Belal started letting his hands go, and he actually rocked Leon badly early in that fight. And I feel like I don't want to question Belal's confidence on his hands, because, he's obviously letting his hands go. But when he hurt Leon, he teed off for a little bit, and then he level changed and tried to put him back down. He did put him back down. I'm curious if he would have kept swinging, if he could have got another kind of standing TKO like he did against Sean Brady. So there's that. And then more examples of how he mixes it up is in that Vicente Luque fight, right? Oh my God, he was kicking him in the body so hard. He had Vicente hurt to the body, and Vicente's thinking, oh, Belal's about to stand with me. Now I'm going to walk forward. And that's when Belal ducks under, blast double, level change. He's just so good at combining all the martial arts together, and he's truly a well-rounded fighter at the top of his game. And the thing we used to talk about with betting on him was that you'd always get value, but it took for this guy to be a world champion for people to figure out that he's the best welterweight on planet Earth, right? Now, on the other side with Della, Maddalena, I think it's a very tough test for Belal Muhammad. Let me explain what I mean. And this might be kind of controversial, and I know a lot of people are going to disagree with me on this, but in my humble opinion, I actually think that the Shavkat fight was an easier fight for Belal than Jack Della. And let me explain what I mean, because I know a lot of people are going to think that's absolutely insane of me to say. Well, the reason I say that is this. I think that Shavkat fights at a much more measured pace than Jack Della. And you do not want to fight at a measured pace against Belal Muhammad. Like I've said in the past, if you try to have a points battle with Belal Muhammad, you're losing. If you're trying to have a technical thinking man's fight with Belal Muhammad, you're going to lose that as well. If you try to take down Belal Muhammad, yeah, good luck with that, right? There's only one way to beat Belal Muhammad. In order to beat Belal Muhammad, you must inflict damage on Belal Muhammad. There's literally no other way to beat this guy. He's way too smart. You're not outsmarting this guy in there. You're not going to out game plan him. You have to you have to create chaos, because when you think about Belal's only losses, they all have something in common. All three of the men that beat Belal all put massive damage on him. That's the only way to beat him. Juban, Vicente the first time, and Jeff Neal. What did they all have in common? They all badly hurt and compromised Belal. That's literally the only way. And the reason why I was saying that Jack, I think, has a better chance than Shavkat, and I know that's crazy to a lot of people because everyone thinks Shavkat's the uncrowned champ, which to me is insane. But we just view fights differently. That's okay. We're allowed to view fights differently. But a lot of y'all that think I'm insane for saying that have been counting out Belal this whole time, whereas me, let's screen share real quick. Check this out. I mean, this right here. These are my numbers on. Hold on. Okay, you see that? These are my numbers on Belal Muhammad fights, right? Like, you're not gonna see better numbers on Belal Muhammad than mine, and that's just the bottom line. You can literally ask anybody for their Belal Muhammad record. I'd like to see it. That's tracked and proven. You're not gonna find a better betting record on Belal Muhammad than mine. And that's just the bottom line. I mean, what's the number looking like? We're up close to like 25 units profit on Belal. And then funnily enough, you look at my record on JDM, I'm undefeated on him too, only up 4 units because I only bet on him in 2 fights. But basically what I'm trying to say is that both these guys are very, very profitable for their backers. But if you looked at those numbers that I just posted to Belal, all those prices were just insane value. Whereas here against Jack, now you have to pay a premium. It took for this guy to be a world champion for people to catch up that he's the best welterweight on planet Earth. But back to the Shavkat and Jack Della talk. Why do I think Jack Della is a tougher fight for Belal than Shavkat? Because Shavkat kind of fights at a measured pace. Yes, he can dish out damage, which is a very important key detail in beating, the great Belal Muhammad. But the thing about it is it's few and far between. And it's a lot of it is dependent on stuff going down on the mat. I know he rocked and he knocked out, Carlson Harris with that spinning kick, but like, what are the chances of getting a spinning kick? Like, Belal's been in there with Wonder Boy, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's used to that stuff. It's with Shavkat where it's really at with him. He's nasty on the mat, but I just have a hard time seeing someone really just take down and control Belal. So you're gonna have to damage him. But I think that Belal pushes such a pace that I think he would gas Shavkat out and eventually break him. Whereas Jack, it's a little bit different. So Jack doesn't have the best takedown defense. Like, you saw that in the Basil Hafez fight. You've seen it in a lot of fights, even on Contender Series when he fought Angelusa and he almost got arm triangled in that spot. But the thing about it is, Jack is a dog, right? Like, you can literally put Jack in all the worst spots and he doesn't quit. He's going to fight to get back up to his feet. And then when he's on the feet, the only thing on his mind is inflicting damage, going to the body, going upstairs, multi-strike combinations. So that's where I'm kind of thinking that this might be a tough fight, because let's say Belal is able to, have that success, taking this guy down, grind out a couple of the rounds. So in most cases, that's going to kind of diminish the confidence of his opponents. Like, look at Vicente Luque, right? I mean, he was like, man, what do I got to do to this guy? Look at Gilbert Burns. Like, he looked defeated after that first round. You can give me all the injury talk you want, but prior to that fight, I remember the picture that was circulating of Belal Muhammad's foot looking like a balloon, and everyone saying that Belal was injured going into the fight. Gilbert wasn't injured going into the fight. Gilbert was injured because of what Belal did to Gilbert. That's just the bottom. I mean, I only speak truth, whether it's, hard or easy to digest. That's not my problem, but I'm here to speak facts and facts only. And I think the difference in pace and heart between this version of JDM and Gil and Vicente, Gil is like almost 40. Vicente, he's a very tough out, but like I felt like the fight, he started to get deflated a bit. Leon too, man. Like when things weren't going Leon's way, you could see, his coach had to have that motivational speech. Don't let him bully you, son. But what were the two moments of success that Leon had in the Belal fight? There were only two moments. The little back take in one of the rounds, that wasn't much. But at the end of the fight, in the 5th round, the biggest moment that Leon had was when Belal slipped off the top. Leon gets on top of Belal, and he's landing some devastating ground and pound at the end, actually opened up Belal. So it kind of further cements my point. The only way to beat Belal Muhammad is to inflict big time damage on him. You are not, like I said, you're not going to win a points battle with Belal. You're not going to outsmart Belal. You're not going to have a thinking man's, fight with Belal. The only way to beat Belal is to badly compromise him. And I think JDM's got the tools to do that. The only thing is, let's say this fight goes the distance, right? It could be, again, one of these situations like that Prates fight. Not necessarily the dynamic of Ian outstriking him on the feet and Prates not doing much, but just in the dynamic of Belal gets so far ahead on the scorecards that by the time the 5th round rolls through, or any of these rounds, because I expect JDM to have a big round, one of these rounds, right? But if it hits the scorecards, it could be that kind of 4-1 scenario where, like, yeah, JDM got the closest to finishing the fight. Maybe he opened up a cut, but Belal won like 20 minutes of the fight. That's kind of like the worst case scenario for JDM. But the best case scenario for JDM would be that when his moments come, like if he's able to just minimize damage when he's taken down, and whether he can get back up or not, the next round starts on the feet, and he just has to make it count. He cannot be gun shy about the takedown attempts, the threat of the takedown. He has to let it go. And if he does, I think he's got a great chance. But that being said, I do agree with Belal Muhammad being favored here. So for that reason, as a pure pick, I'm going to pick Belal Muhammad to come out here and defend his belt and still be the welterweight champion of the world. But I thought that the Shavkat fight was, again, easier. You don't want to call fights easy when you're talking about such dangerous men like Shavkat Rakhmonov and Jack Della Maddalena. But I just think that Jack is tougher than Shavkat and fights at a way higher pace than Shavkat. Like, you saw Shavkat's face when Ian Gary almost choked him out. He was like, whoa, I didn't know that dudes could like do stuff like that to me. I thought I was, everyone's been gassing Shavkat up like he's the second coming, Like I remember when Shavkat got some of his highlight reels, one of them was around the Easter time. People were tweeting out, he is risen about Shavkat. You know what I'm saying, man? So the aura that Shavkat has was ridiculous. So when he had to go through some adversity, it was kind of like, whoa, we're not used to this. Whereas Jack's been through adversity in multiple fights. He doesn't care. He lives in the darkness and he's willing to swim in those deep waters. That's why I love this fight so much. I'm absolutely intrigued. And yeah, from a betting perspective, this might sound crazy, but I think it's a dog or pass situation. But as a pure pick, I'm going to go with Belal Muhammad to come out here and defend his belt. And man, I expect this to be a scrap with lots of hold your breath moments along the way. Now, co-main event in the flyweight division for the belt, we got the champ, Valentina Shevchenko. She's 24-4-1, taking on France's own Manon Fiorot, who's 12-1. And currently, they got it. Manon Fiorot, -150. The comeback on Valentina Shevchenko is +130. So I can already go ahead and tell y'all, I'm sure y'all saw it, that I bet on Manon Fiorot here at -120. So assuming that not a bunch of heavy action comes in on Valentina, I feel like I did my job as far as the odds are concerned. And there's a reason that obviously there's a reason I bet her here. I didn't just blindly bet her here. But firstly, I want to give credit to Valentina for coming back and winning the belt back again. You don't often see long reigning champions when they lose their belts. It's a very rare occasion for her, for any of them to come back and win that belt. And not only did she do that, Volk did it at UFC 314. So massive credit to two legends of the sport. But I want to say this. I've thought that Valentina was kind of not on a steep decline, because I don't want to be disrespectful about a current champion, who's accomplished what she's accomplished, but that she's not at the height of her career anymore, right? But she's so amazing that she can still maintain, still be a world champion. But I'm saying, like, the only evolution I've seen in her game is actually her takedown game. Like, offensive takedowns, those have gotten a lot better. The entries have been beautiful. But besides that, striking style is exactly the same as it's always been throughout her career, which is low volume counter striking. From that southpaw stance, she's got that check right hook. She's got a spin. She's got an inside leg kick. But not much else. From time to time, some combos, but not much else. Usually it's one shot at a time. Whereas on the other side with Manon Fiorot, I mean, her volume is absolutely ridiculous. So just on the merit of that, well, let's not talk about grappling yet. Let's just talk pure striking. You know, Valentina wants you to come to her so she can counter. The thing about it is Manon Fiorot is a bit bigger than Valentina, so she's not going to have to like really close too much distance and like crash the pocket and get inside Valentina's punching range. What I think here is that Manon can keep this on the outside. Usually Valentina is the one that's able to keep fights on the outside, right? Let you come to her. Not in this case. In this case, I think that Manon can run around the cage, side kick, jab, kicks, combinations, and kind of frustrate Valentina. And I'm wearing this Nick Diaz shirt. You know, don't be scared, homie. But this can kind of remind me of a Nick Diaz fight he had against Carlos Condit, where Carlos Condit was running around the ring, doubling him up on volume, landing the combinations, whereas Nick Diaz was kind of more planted, more set, and it was less volume. But when he let it go, he did make a count, but I don't think it's going to be as close as that. I just could see a similar situation. But I do think that Manon Fiorot is going to double up Valentina on strikes, which I know sounds crazy. Listen, I thought Valentina was on a decline since the Jennifer Maia fight, since the Tyla Santos fight. So I was thinking that, you know, if you go back and you hear my breakdown of her first fight with Alexa, I said, I'm not sure if it's going to be this fight or the next fight, but one of these next few fights, Valentina is about to lose her belt. And it happened to be that fight, right? And, you know, people are saying that Valentina was winning the entire fight and then she got choked out. Yeah, complete fake news. Alexa won the first round. Valentina wins the next two rounds. Alexa was on her way to winning the fourth round, ends up getting the finish. Let's say she didn't get the finish. Let's say Valentina never tapped. Okay, that's 2-2 going into round 5. So how are people acting like Valentina was clearly up? Now, in the rematch, I concede that I thought Valentina won that. But again, there were some visuals and some optics I didn't like. You know, she got hit with a shot. She dropped and she does like a backwards roll. And like, I was like, damn, is my girl getting a little chinny too? Because the fight prior, you know, she got choked out. So there was a weakness. There was a potential, you know, lack of focus on the mat. Now she's getting dropped and stuff. And that final fight, the third fight, the trilogy with Alexa, I do want to give Valentina a lot of credit for the timing of her takedown entries. It was beautiful, but like, so in the first round, I'm thinking, wow, Valentina looks like she's pulling some GSP tactics here, right? But the fact that Alexa wasn't able to make any adjustments whatsoever actually speaks more, in my opinion, about what Alexa did wrong compared to what Valentina did right. And let me explain what I mean. Every time that Alexa got taken down, she made 0 attempts to stand back up. In fact, all she tried to do was attack submissions off her back. And I'm actually curious if the stats back me up. Let me see. I want to see something real quick. If they counted what I'm thinking I'm about to say. So let's see. Submission attempts. Okay. So in that third fight with Alexa and Valentina, so they only gave Alexa, they only credited Alexa with 2 submission attempts. I guess that one arm bar and I think the triangle as well. But like, dude, she was attacking subs off her back all night. But what she wasn't doing was she wasn't trying to get back up to her feet. And I think that's one fundamental difference between her and Manon. Manon's not going to try to be throwing arm bars up off her back. And if that doesn't work, okay, now let's go triangle. Now let's try, you know, butterfly sweeps. I love all that stuff. But like, if that doesn't work, you got to go to your next option. You can't just keep going back to the well if it's not working. And Alexa made 0 attempts to get back up to her feet. Whereas not only do I think that Manon Fiorot is going to be super tough to take down. I mean, let's look at this. Manon Fiorot has 93% takedown defense, my friends. And we're not dealing with like a 2-fight sample size where the stat is, you know, a bunch of bullshit. No, this is against Erin Blanchfield, who I think could be a future champion. Rose Namajunas, former champion. Jennifer Maia. Let's talk a little Jennifer Maia. You want to do a little MMA math? Well, there really isn't much MMA math here because both Manon and Valentina beat Jennifer Maia, but they both got something in common. Jennifer Maia took both of them down. But let me talk about the difference between that. When Jennifer Maia took down Valentina, it was like life alert, help, I've fallen and can't get up. And that was the end of that round. Jennifer Maia wins that round, stayed on top of her the whole time. Whereas when Jennifer Maia took down Manon Fiorot popped right back up right away. One more point I got for y'all. The volume difference. That's something I've been talking about, right? In Manon Fiorot's last fight against Blanchfield, which was 5 rounds, against a relentless opponent that fights at double the pace of Valentina. Manon Fiorot, listen to this, guys. She attempted almost 400 strikes. She landed 172 significant strikes. Okay, let me ask y'all a bit of trivia. I believe off the top of my head, Valentina has had 17 UFC fights. In those 17 UFC fights, how many times has Valentina hit the 100 significant strike mark? Let me know. Take a quick guess. The answer, my friends, 0. Not even once has she hit the 100 significant strike mark. And we're talking multiple 5-round fights. Okay. Manon Fiorot, her very last fight, almost hit the 200 significant strike mark. So like I said, y'all, the volume difference here is night and day. 93% takedown defense from Manon. And then there's a size difference too. You're the bigger girl here. And yeah, I think that she's catching Valentina at an incredible time. I'm willing to put my money on it. I already did. I played it at -120 to win 3 units. I believe that means I risked 3.6 units to win 3 units. I'm Manon Fiorot to come out here, defeat the future Hall of Famer, Valentina Shevchenko, and come out here and become the new UFC flyweight champion of the world and the first ever undisputed French UFC champion. Featured bout also in the strawweight division. Speaking of the devil, Alexa Grasso, the former champion, she's 16-4-1, taking on Natalia Silva, who's 18-5-1. Currently, they got it. Yeah, Natalia -220. The comeback on Alexa Grasso is +185. So, wow, I think Natalia Silva is incredible. I think that she's one of the best prospects in this division. Has, if not future champ, at least future title challenger written all over her. I love everything about her game, from the fight IQ, how smart she is, how she comes out here with these game plans. Her footwork is so good. Her athleticism, her cardio, her chin. I mean, she got caught with some bombs from Jessica Andrade, the same kind of bombs that knocked out Mackenzie Dern, the same kind of bombs that knocked out Karolina Kowalkiewicz, the same kind of bombs that had Rose Namajunas very hesitant to exchange with Jessica Andrade deep into their fights. And this girl, Natalia, just goes in there 3 straight rounds, keeps it standing, and has a beautiful hit and run performance. Over 100 significant strikes. Let's look at the exact number real quick, just to be sure on this one. So Natalia lands, yeah, exactly, 117 significant strikes, more than doubles up the legend Jessica Andrade, man. I felt like that was a big confidence booster. And I also want to say Natalia's been fighting some tough chicks, man. I mean, like, she fought Jasmine Jasudavicius and stopped all her takedowns and put a clinic on her. And like, Natalia's paid those requisite dues to earn this opportunity against the former champion Alexa Grasso. And listen, Alexa Grasso does 2 things very well for MMA. She's got decent hands for sure, and off her back, she's got some opportunistic jiu-jitsu. But the thing is, that's the extent of it. I don't see too much of a kicking arsenal for Alexa. Of course, she's a pro UFC fighter. Some kicks here and there, but nothing like Natalia's kicks. And then, like, Natalia's like knocked chicks out with like spinning back kicks to the face type stuff, and she's got a beautiful side kick. In that Jessica Andrade fight, I mentioned how Jessica rocked Natalia Silva. I loved how Natalia responded with that side kick and actually put Jessica down with it. Yeah, that was beautiful, man. So with Alexa, you got to worry about her hands a little bit, and you got to worry if you take her down. She's got jiu-jitsu off her back, but besides that, what does she got? I mean, she can't get up from bottom. She's got opportunistic abilities, but like, I just think that the moments and the minutes are going to be dictated by Natalia Silva. I see a 30-27, to be honest with you. I'm hoping that Alexa, she's such a lovable fighter, a great personality, former champion, has a country behind her. I'm hoping that some action comes in so I can get a more reasonable price on Natalia Silva. But I think Natalia Silva's the better talent. I think she's got the brighter future, and I think she's paid the requisite dues to not only earn this opportunity against the former champion Alexa Grasso, but to pass this test with flying colors. And That's what I think she's going to do Saturday night. Next up in the bantamweight division, we got a match between the legend Jose Aldo Jr. Jose Aldo. Listen, I watched the WEC. I was around when this man was named Jose Aldo, and then I was also around when they started calling him Jose. But anyways, my boy, the legend, the king of Rio, the Brazilian gangster. He's 32-9, taking on Aiemann Zahabi, who's 12-2. Now, guys, let me read the odds real quick before I say what I'm about to say. Currently, the odds are -220 Aldo, the comeback on Aiemann Zahabi, +185. If you would have told me a few years ago that Aiemann Zahabi was going to fight Jose Aldo, I mean, even now I'm still surprised. I'm like, damn, like, wow. But props to Aldo. It's like, for a guy who's retired before, he's a legendary fighter. For y'all don't know about Aldo, I've been watching this guy since the WC, since I was, I think, either late high school, early college, something like that. He's already in the Hall of Fame. He's not a future Hall of Famer. He's a current Hall of Famer. And like, for a dude that like is, closer to a second retirement than he is to a title run, man, he's one of the few legendary fighters that like still got it, man. Like, even this late into his career, he's so fast twitch, so educated with his combinations. Back in the day, his leg kick game was amazing. What's still amazing is his takedown defense. I mean, he's the only guy to not get taken down by Merab Dvalishvili in the UFC. I think that speaks volumes, and he's still fighting super competitive with everybody, with the up and comers, with the ranked guys, with the current champ. I mean, damn, Aldo's the man. But I want to give Aiemann Zahabi a lot of credit. If you would have told me a dude that lost to Vince Morales would make it to a fight with Jose Aldo, I would have been like, yeah, it's like that meme, like, okay, grandma, let's get you to bed, Jonah Hill cut, like, all right, son, like, I'm gonna pat you on the back and send you on your way, But man, props to Aiemann. You got on the win streak. You got that victory against Pedro Munoz. Like, it's a big deal when you beat Pedro Munoz. That's like a true gatekeeper to the top 15. And at one point, he was a top 5 guy. Now I'm going to do a little MMA math. Not that it's that relevant, but let me say this. Look at the difference in performance that Jose had against Pedro and that Aiemann had against Pedro. Jose just clean swept him, had Pedro asking for selfies and autographs in the center of the octagon. Whereas, Aiemann and Pedro had like a very, very close back and forth fight. And I think Aimann's made a lot of improvements, but I think there's some misconceptions here. I think people think that Aimann's some young prospect. This is a young prospect versus, old vet type thing. No, it's not, dude. Like, Aiemann was born in 87. Aldo was born in 86. This is not a prospect versus legend fight. This is a legend versus vet. This is, a legend versus another vet. You know what I'm saying? And even in this form that Aldo's in, I think he's better than Aiemann Zahabi. Listen, a lot of respect to Aiemann. He's a gamer. To get to this win streak you've got on, all respect, man. Like, for real, all respect. And he seems like such a nice guy. So he's someone that's really easy to root for. But you know who else is easy to root for? The legendary king of Rio, Jose Aldo. I think that his combinations are going to be more explosive, more impactful. I highly doubt he gets taken down, and I don't think that Aiemann has the pace necessary to push Aldo to that brink like Jan and Holloway did. So I'm going Jose Aldo here, most likely a decision. All right, so I just broke down the whole main card for y'all, and I'm gonna rattle off some of the prelims. I'm still, like I said, guys, I'm recording this on Monday right now. My big show is Wednesday night. I got 3 amazing guests Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern time. Make sure y'all tap in with me. We're gonna break down the whole card and give our picks, our bets, all that stuff. But right now, just a little early, something for y'all on Monday. I'm gonna rattle off the prelims a little quick. I still need to do more research on those. The fights I've talked about already, I've pretty much, as you can tell, I put my work in. With some of these, I still need to put more work into. So we're going to talk about the rest of the prelims. And then after that, I'm going to recap last week's Iowa card. We got to talk about Bo Nickel and Corey Sandhagen. So let's keep going. Okay. So, and do me a favor, smash that like button, hit the subscribe button, leave me a comment, all that. This is a love language, my friends. Like, we're just here to talk about the sport we love and try to give back, and try to keep this community together. So let's keep it rolling. Now, next up in the bantamweight division, we got a matchup between Brad Katona. He's 14-4, taking on Bezkat Almakhan, who's 11-2. Currently, they got it. Is this order even right? Like, I'm on Tapology. There's no way Brad Katona is the featured prelim, right? Like, there's just no way. Like, especially not over like Jessica Andrade and Jasmine Jasudavicius, right? There's absolutely no way of that. But I'm just going on Tapology order, so bear with me. But yeah, currently they got it. Bezkat minus 180, Katona minus or plus 155. I'm not sold on Bezkat. Let me tell you why. I think this is back to the Steve Urseg, Roberto Romero effect, where a guy has 1 second of success in a fight, then gets dominated the rest of the fight, and then he's a chalk favorite his very next fight against a proven fighter, and people can't wait to bet him. I'm like, what is going on here? And I heard someone that I respect, someone I really respect, compare the Bezkat debut against Umar to Sarukian versus Makhachev. I'm like, are you fucking serious? Like, Sarukian and Makhachev was a 3-round scrap back and forth. Like, was like, wow, fight of the night. Whereas Umar Nurmagomedov and Bezkat, closed his eyes and swung a big shot, landed on the temple, drops Umar in the first 30 seconds, and then gets dominated for the next 14 minutes and 30 seconds. Like 2 seconds after he dropped Umar was on top of this guy. Like, so that doesn't tell me anything. I'm not overblowing that at all. It's just like, oh, Roberto Romero had an early moment against David Onama. Now y'all are going to bet chalk on him against, a more battle-tested veteran. And then Steve Urseg had a moment against Pantoja. Now y'all are going to bet him against Moreno and Kai Kara France. It's like, bro, that recency bias of having one little moment of success and overblowing someone's performance in a loss is absolutely insane. Now, I still need to watch more tape because Katona fights close with everyone. Katona isn't going to dominate everyone, isn't going to dominate anyone, but he's going to fight close with a lot of people. So pre-tape, I think this is a dog or pass situation. Unless I watched the regional tape of Bezkat and I'm super impressed. As of right now on Monday, I think this is another Urseg, Roberto Romero situation where the wrong guy is favored. Next up in the middleweight division, we got a matchup between Marc-Andre Barriault, he's 16-9, taking on Bruno Blindado Silva, who's 23-12. Currently, they got it. Marc-Andre minus 150, the comeback on Bruno Blindado plus 130. Yeah, it's a tough one because I'm a huge fan of Bruno Blindado. Dude's got like 20 knockouts on his record, came into the UFC, knocked out real people outside the UFC. Alexander Shlemenko, Artem Frolov, not Artem Lobov, Artem Frolov comes in the UFC. He knocked out Brad Tavares. He's knocked out some real people, but I just haven't seen the same guy since the Alex Pereira fight, which I understand. You go 3 hard rounds with Alex. You're like one of the only people to not get knocked out or knocked down by Alex. It seemed like it took his soul away, and I just haven't seen the same guy, and progressively he's been getting worse and worse. The GM3 fight, oh my God, that was a bad look. And then, he did his thing against Brad, but man, that most recent one against Nardiev, and then he posts the whole paragraph talking about how he had insane anxiety. He didn't want to be there. First of all, as someone who has suffered with anxiety, I can relate, Bruno. And because, it doesn't matter who you are. Like, I get told all the time how outgoing and charismatic and confident I am and all these things. Dude, I suffer from anxiety. So anybody it does not matter who you are, what you do, what accomplishment, none of that matters. You're like, if anxiety is something that you suffer from, it is what it is. You could be anybody. So, with that being said, I commend Bruno Silva for, coming out and being vulnerable and expressing that and letting people know that's what he was going through. So, man, tip my cap off. But that being said, it hasn't been that long since that fight. And have you been talking to someone? Have you kind of, try to address things? Because Bruno at his best is a devastating knockout artist, and kind of the way I describe both of these guys' current form is, Marc-Andre Barriault, he's a brawler, he's a banger, he's like a hockey enforcer, single collar tie uppercuts, you know what I'm fucking saying? But like, Marc-Andre Barriault's been getting slept in a lot of fights badly. So I feel like Marc-Andre Barriault lost his chin, but Bruno Blindado Silva lost his soul. And a bad chin is something you can work around, but not having the will to fight anymore, that's a lot harder to disguise. So unless I'm tipped off that like Bruno, he's been seeing someone, he's locked in, he's back to his former self, it's really hard for me to pick him in a fight, despite Barriault getting badly slept his last 2 in a row. And he could get slept here because, like I said, Bruno Silva has 20 knockouts on his record. He is that dangerous, but it seems like Bruno kind of mentally checked out, whereas Barriault might still want it. So for that reason, I'm going to pick Barriault as of right now. Now, next up in the welterweight division, we got a matchup between Mike Malott, he's 11-2-1, taking on Charles Chuck Buffalo Radtke was 10-4. Currently, they got it. Mike Malott minus 220. The comeback on Charles Radtke is plus 185. Interesting fight because I think that Mike Malott's a talented martial artist, but not a talented fighter. And I think that Charles Radtke is a talented fighter, but not a talented martial artist. And what I mean by that is like, okay, if you would just rather take a martial arts class from one of these two, 100%, 10 times out of 10, you're taking it from Mike Malott. He'll show you a lot better techniques, just his kicks, that guillotine, his takedown entries, just the martial arts skills are great with Mike Malott. But if you want to, work on your toughness and your dog and your grit, then you got to talk to Charles Radtke because, yeah, his, martial arts arsenal might not be as pretty and kind of profound as Mike Malott, but he's 10 times tougher than Mike Malott. He's way more of a dog than Mike Malott. Mike Malott don't got that dog in him. But Mike Malott has a lot of great techniques in them. That's just the thing. So it's tough. So it's like, can Charles Radtke get to Mike Malott? Because one thing about Radtke, he's got some nasty power. 3 of his 4 UFC opponents have felt that power badly. The only one that didn't was Carlos Prates, who has more than 2 or 3 times the experience of Charles Radtke. That's like a top 10 guy. But the first fight against Blood Diamond, first of all, it was a very ugly fight, but let's put context into it. The guy has to fly to Australia. He gets low blowed like 4 times in that fight. But even in that first round, I believe it was a left hook, and he had Blood Diamond doing an insane chicken dance, right? And then the Urbina and the Semmelsberger fight, it's like when he touches these guys, they're like, it's like that scene in Russia, or like, which one of y'all hit me with that, And I'm very curious what kind of reactions he's going to get from Malott when he hits Malott, because Malott tends to get his nose broken every single fight. I remember in the Johan Lainez fight, the one fight that Malott didn't get touched in, there was some backstage footage. He's like, wow, I finally didn't have to get my nose broken. But the Neil Magny fight was one of the biggest stunts I've ever seen in my life. And it wasn't actually the domination I remembered. Hear me out. So the first round, yeah, I gave the first 2 rounds to Malott, 100%. But the first round was kind of ugly, low volume, not much happened. It was kind of like, what's going to happen when Malott fights someone that's not, a goofy ass guy like Magny, who's on his way out, who, is stable on his feet and, is actually going to fight him. And then, so that first round was ugly. The second round was a lot better for Malott. He got a lot of takedown wrestling success and was able to be on top of Magny. It was like, okay, yeah, we're trending towards a nice little 2-0 start. Third round, Malott was getting his takedowns too, but Magny scrambles and then he gets in on a takedown shot on Malott with like 2 minutes left, right? And he takes Malott down and gets on top of him. So from there, you think to yourself, okay, listen, Malott, even if you lose this round, dude, just hang on. Don't do anything stupid. Don't try to sell out for a sweep, a submission. Just control this guy's posture. Hang on. Try to stall, bro. You got the first 2 rounds in the bag. And this guy is like trying all kinds of stuff, giving up position. Now Neil Magny's in full mount. Now Neil Magny's teeing off on this guy. And, Malott couldn't recompose a half guard, couldn't control posture, couldn't do shit. And it was one of the most epic stunts I've ever seen in all my years watching the sport. Now, he bounces back against Trevin Giles, but my God, that was an ugly fight. And that's a Trevin Giles who's been through the ringer. That's a Trevin Giles who's been knocked dead how many times? And we know Trevin Giles has early success against a lot of opponents, Mike Malott included. He had Malott's nose badly bleeding, but after that, he just like kind of stopped throwing. I think he saw the damage he caused in round 1 and was like, oh yeah, I did that. And then he just kind of like took his foot off the gas. And I'll give Malott credit. Even though the volume was so low and it was an ugly fight, Malott did more in those second and third rounds. And as a result, I thought he won that fight. So you have to give that to Mike Malott. You know what I mean? And because I know Giles was on. This looks ugly. This is my little protein shake. So don't be going too crazy. But because I know Trevin Giles was on social media talking about he got robbed. How can you get robbed if you stop throwing after round 1, So yeah, this is interesting. I think that's a dogger pass situation as well. Also on the card, we got Jessica Andrade, who's 26-13, taking on Jasmine Jasudavicius, who's 13-3. Currently, they got it. Jasmine Jasudavicius minus 255. The comeback on Andrade is plus 215. So obviously Andrade, a future Hall of Famer, someone we have so much respect for. And you know that when she charges you with those blitzes, you better be careful because she's not only knocked people out, but she's rocked a ton of people. But man, I've been blown away by Jasmine, especially that last performance against Myra. Because I thought going into that, I was like, how's Jasmine this big of a favorite? Like on the feet, this is a mismatch. And like, I love how Jasmine conducted herself on the feet against Myra Bueno. And let me say this, because I know Jasmine, people are like, oh, she's 35, she's 36, she's old. Dude, she is a young 35. She is a young 36. She's developing in every fight. I'm seeing level ups. And back in the day, she used to call herself the female GSP. These last few fights, I've been seeing it, guys. Like the striking is flowing to the grappling, to the takedowns, to the submission attempts, to everything. I'm very, very impressed. And I think she's catching Jessica Andrade at an amazing time. Obviously, there's going to be a test, but Jazz is tough, man. Jasmine's super tough. She can take a shot. She's not going to quit. So actually, I think this is a great matchup for her. And yeah, I look forward to seeing where these odds go, but I think there's a great chance that Jasmine gets the biggest win of her career Saturday night here. And of course, shout out to Andrade. I'll always be a fan for life. So in the 205-pound division, we got Navajo Stirling, who's 6-0, taking on Aiemann Erslan, who's 14-4. Currently, they got it. Navajo minus 265. The comeback on Aiemann Erslan plus 225. This is one I need to research more because Navajo Stirling, I haven't been that impressed, but I want to go back and see if I was too harsh on him or not. And then with Aiemann Erslan, I actually bet him in his UFC debut at dog odds against Cutelaba, made it to a split. Going into that fight, I was kind of calling this guy like the white Jimmy Manuwa. He just likes to let his hands go. His wrestling defense ain't the best, but it has improved. It is getting better. But man, he's got very heavy hands. And with Stirling, I kind of view him as like a long point striker. So I still need to research this one. But pre-tape, I think for this one, dogger pass, but I'm not sure yet. Wednesday, I'll know for sure what I'm thinking. And then also in the 205-pound division, we got a matchup between Modesta's Bukauskas, who's 17-6, taking on Iwan Cutelaba, who's 19-10-1. Currently, they got it. Oh, shit. Modesta's Bukauskas minus 120. Iwan Cutelaba minus 105. Wow. So like a pick 'em with a slight lean on Bukauskas. You know, guys, I'm actually kind of on the opposite there. I'm kind of thinking it's a pick 'em with a slight lean on Cutelaba. One thing I got to say about Cutelaba, how old is this guy? He's got to still be young, right? Like Cutelaba, yeah, 31. He's been in the UFC, guys. When did this guy make his UFC debut? Let's pull this up. This guy made his UFC debut in 2016. He's almost been in the company 10 years. He's been learning on the job. He's only 31. So that means he came into the UFC at 22, 23 years old, man. And now he has the chance. If he wins this fight, guys, Iwan Cutelaba, let me just confirm what I'm saying is true. Let me just double check. Yeah, it is true. If Iwan Cutelaba wins this fight, he will be on his first ever 3-fight win streak inside the octagon. And shout out to Modesta's Bukauskas because, you know, his first UFC stint didn't go his way. He's come back. He's won 4 of his last 5 fights, but I got to say the level of competition has been astronomically lower than what Iwan Cutelaba's been fighting. Like that Rafael Cerqueira guy, that might literally be, and again, this is not to be disrespectful, this is just to be honest, and I know truth hurts, but that Rafael Cerqueira guy might literally be the worst light heavyweight fighter I've ever seen in all my years watching the sport in terms of UFC level. The crazy thing is that people went back to the well to bet that guy multiple times after they saw what happened to him. Yeah, I'll never get that for the life of me. But Bukauskas, he's got a solid traditional martial arts background, good kicks. Just in terms of like the athleticism is a bit on the slower side. Where I think Iwan Cutelaba, way better athlete, more well-rounded, both have paid insane amounts of dues. Should be a good fight. I lean Cutelaba there. And then last but not least, this is interesting. In the featherweight division, we got Jiang Li. He's 11-2. He's taking on Daniel Willie Cat Santos, who's also 11-2. But the thing about it is it's at featherweight. So let's talk about that. So currently they got it. Daniel Willie Cat Santos minus 125. They come back on Jiang Li's plus 105. So I understand why there's a slight lean on Willie Cat Santos because I actually do think he's the better fighter. However, I want to talk about 2 things. Number one, I think he's too small for featherweight. This dude's got a 67-inch reach, man. Like, that's already small for bantamweight, which is his normal weight class. And now he's moving up to featherweight. So yeah, I think he's got better skills and techniques than Jung Young Lee. Jung Young Lee just kind of a brawler, whereas Daniel Santos also a brawler, but more nuanced and just more well-rounded attack, trains with better people, but he's too small for featherweight. And then I'm also wondering, why does he pull out of so many fights? Like, again, if it's an anxiety thing, I can relate to that. I sympathize with that. But it's like when he fights, there's like no quit in this guy. So someone was comparing him to Tom Breeze, someone I respect. I get it. He has a tough time showing up to the fight, but I'm also like, Tom Breeze would not just not show up to the fight. When he did show up to the fight, he'd quit in the fight. Whereas like there's like no quit whatsoever in Daniel Santos in these fights. So I'm wondering what's going on. Is it a weight management issue? I don't know. If someone actually knows the real reason, let me know. Because I hear all these people saying, "Oh, Daniel Santos is ducking this. He's quitting. Bro, fuck that." I saw his fight with Castaneda. If this guy was a quitter, he would have covered up after that head kick. This guy doesn't have a single quitting bone in his body. I'm just wondering if he suffers from anxiety or if his weight's too high or what the deal is. So if anyone knows, let me know. But it's just tough because I think he's too small for featherweight. So this is one I'm going to look into a little bit more and give you all a better answer. Not next week, on Wednesday night at 7 p.m. Eastern time with my guest. So now let's go back to UFC Des Moines last week and let's recap some of these fights. So obviously Corey Sandhagen went out there and defeated Davison Figueiredo via second round TKO. And it was just obvious that Sandhagen was a step ahead in terms of the output. It was good to see Corey Sandhagen letting it go and not being timid like he has been his last few fights. And basically the ending sequence was just kind of like when you get into these 50-50 positions, like the leg lock entanglements, it's all about clearing that knee line. I know for y'all non-jiu-jitsu people, this is all gibberish to you, but just hear me out. I'm only going to talk about it 2 more seconds. So your knee has to be either all the way in or all the way out. And if it's all the way in, listen, Corey Sandhagen didn't just do this to Davison. He also did this to TJ Dillashaw. Only difference was TJ Dillashaw, when he got his knee, torn apart in that fight, he actually kept fighting, which was crazy. And he ended up winning the fight. Corey got cocky in that fight. But this time Davison was like, fuck that, bro. I'm 38. Like, let me get my 6-figure check and, heal myself up, live to fight another day. So I understand. Props to Corey. And we'll see what they do next with him. Title shot, Sean O'Malley, something like that. I'm down for it. And then, oh man, Rainer de Ridder destroyed Bo Nickel. So guys, in terms of total picks for this card, I think I went like 9-3. 9-3 ain't bad, right? But like, I didn't get any, like, I don't need compliments. I don't need any of that, right? But like, there was no like, oh man, great call on that underdog, pick on Daniel Rodriguez, or great call on this or that. There was none of that. It was only you picked Bo Nickel to win. I didn't even bet Bo Nickel to win, but I picked Bo Nickel. Therefore, I don't know shit about fighting. But listen, guys, props to Rainer de Ridder. I think that one thing I overlooked going into this, which I normally never overlook, and I even mentioned it, but I just kind of brushed past it, was the MMA experience. Like, Rainer de Ridder has Bo Nickel covered on MMA experience by a mile. I think he has like 3 to 4 times the MMA experience. And although Bo has competed under the bright lights and high level wrestling, there's no punches, kicks, knees, and elbows in high level wrestling. And Rainer de Ridder has been paying dues in MMA, and it really showed him. Just the fact that Rainer wasn't intimidated of Bo, the fact that Rainer was pushing a pace on Bo, fighting him back. Oh, you try to take me down, no big deal. Like, now you're in my world. Then they're back on the feet, the length. And one thing, actually, if you go back to my breakdown of this fight, so I did pick Bo Nickel. However, I said what I'd like to see Rainer de Ridder do here is using that range and going to the body a lot, because I think that would behoove him. And it was a body shot that finished the fight. So shout out Rainer de Ridder. Like, but people saying Bo got fraud checked, bro. He's 7-0 fighting like a world-class fighter. Like, come on, man. Like, let's get Bo Nickel back in there with, kind of a lower level guy. Like, Bo Nickel's only 7-1, guys. People are treating him like he was like 20-0 or something. Like, he's 7-1. He's still a bright prospect, but let him go back to the drawing board, build himself back up. Whereas Rainer de Ridder, I mean, Rainer de Ridder versus Israel Adesanya, Rainer de Ridder versus Sean Strickland, Rainer de Ridder versus Caio Borralho, Rainer de Ridder versus Jared Cannonier. I mean, what do y'all want to see? You want to see Rainer de Ridder retire Marvin Vettori? Like, let me know. I'm down for all those options. So y'all let me know in the comments below, who should Rainer de Ridder fight next? Because I think that he's got a very good chance to make it to the top 10 and beyond. And also on the card, D-Rod, like I said, beat Pons. And, when you get two guys that are kind of on their way out and they're kind of evenly matched, you usually should take the dog. But like I said, that Pons is the chinnier guy, but he probably wants it a little bit more. Like you saw, even when he got knocked out, he's getting back up like, bro, like, let me keep fighting. Like Pons is willing to fight to the death, but props to D-Rod, man. It was those long combinations. It wasn't just one shot at a time. It was like 4 or 5 piece combos. Damn, that made the difference. And that's what got Ponzinibbio out of there. So props to D-Rod for that. Montel Jackson and Daniel Marcos. I know the fans didn't enjoy that fight as much. When you look at the stats, I understand why, but it was a very high level fight. And sometimes when you got, a guy who's 17-0, doesn't want to lose his record, taking on another smart fighter who's also kind of risk adverse, neither guy wants to lose, but Montel Jackson controlled that fight. He had Daniel Marcos intimidated of the power and that insane range and reach. And, he really shut down Daniel Marcos. But that being said, I think Daniel Marcos is going to bounce back. No, like I said, no one is exempt from that first L unless your name is John Jones or Habib. And if they stick around long enough, they'll take their first L's too. So Marcos will be back, but Montel Jackson, I think it's time we give this guy a top 10 opponent. Let me pull up the rankings real quick. Tell me what y'all think. So in the top 10, let's see. Guys, I mean, I want my boy Lockdog to kind of get Rob Font and Henry Cejudo, out the top 10. But if they want to, present that opportunity to Montel Jackson, I'm perfectly cool with that. You know what I'm saying? So, and then like there's some other stuff which I think is insane. Kyler Phillips being ranked in front of Montel Jackson, Marcus McGee, Aiemann Zahabi, like okay, bro. So yeah, there's lots of options. Like guys that I'm not going to disrespect anybody, but I'm just going to say I think Montel's better than all those guys, and I hope he gets matched up with one of them because I do think he's a top 10 guy right now. Now, Serhi Sidi and Cameron Smotherman, I got to admit, I didn't really get a chance to watch this fight much. I think this was when our food was arriving, so I was kind of distracted there. Mason Jones and Jeremy Stevens, man, I was surprised they didn't get the fight of the night. Maybe it was because of the grappling at the end, but I thought it was all exciting. I really enjoyed it. 3-round brawl. Mason Jones got to show off all areas of his game, almost landed 100 significant strikes, plus 8 takedowns. Shout out to Jeremy taking that ass whooping and landing shots of his own too. Yeah, I hope they keep Jeremy around because I heard it was only a 1-fight contract. What about like Jeremy and Michael Chandler or Jeremy and Conor McGregor? Like, who the fuck is that guy? Let's see that. So those are the only fights I want to see for Jeremy Stevens in the UFC. Michael Chandler or Conor McGregor, but specifically Conor McGregor. We have to see that. And for Mason Jones, welcome back, kid. You're right back in the mix. And yeah, let's see. Let me pull up some rankings because fuck it. Let's get this guy in the rankings. So lightweight. I mean, do y'all think that Mason Jones versus Grant Dawson is out the question? Do you think Mason Jones versus Benoit Saint-Denis is out the question? So yesterday on Stats Diggers, shout out to my boys Wheezy and Brady. So they were talking about, do we think that BSD is going to get a fight this weekend? And I told them, because I'd been told at that point that Gamrot had accepted the BSD fight. But I wasn't allowed to say it. So I just said, hey guys, good news. BSD's got a fight and it's against a top 15 opponent. So this was Sunday night, right? Monday morning, today in the morning, I get a text that, hey guys, hey Daniel, fight's off because BSD, like everyone had agreed to it, but apparently BSD's coach last minute was like, oh, I don't think so. The stylistic difference is drastic. No, we're not taking this fight. So fight's off. But that being said, Mason Jones versus Grant Dawson versus Benoit Saint-Denis. Mason Jones, fucking Michael Chandler and Mason Jones would be sick, dude. Mason Jones, and I mean, I know Dan Hooker's ranked really high, but do you really think Dan Hooker would mop the floor with Mason Jones? I don't. I think that's a sick fight. But if they got to give him someone out the rankings, there's plenty of options. So Mason Jones, you're in good hands, and I hope you got a fat new contract because you fight the way people want to see people fight. So thank you very much, Mason Jones. And oh yeah, and shout out Jeremy Stevens because that was, in my opinion, the fight of the night. Misha Tate and Yana Santos. Credit to Santos and credit to my boy Cody Durden correctly picking this one. I didn't see too many people on Yana Santos there. So, she stuffed the takedowns the first 2 rounds. Last round got taken down. That's 29-28 Santos. Props to you. Azamat Bekoyev, man, he ran through Ryan Loder. Oh my God, he's ran through his first 2 UFC opponents in a way where it's like, hey, you deserve a step up in competition, kid. So I think Bekoyev, you got to go ahead and give him a step up. Let me look at the middleweight rankings. Is Abus Magomedov and Bekoyev out the question? Is Roman Kopylov and Bekoyev out the question? Is Paulo Costa and Bekoyev out the question? It is, because Paulo Costa doesn't fight, but like skills wise, like, do y'all think? Fuck, bro, this Marvin Vettori guy is still a top 10 guy. You're telling me Bekoyev couldn't come out here and beat Marvin Vettori? There's lots of ways we can go with Bekoyev. And as far as Ryan Loder, it's been real, kid. You're going to make a great coach. So yeah, I look forward to seeing the talent that you develop from the kids you're coaching. Jillian Robertson, wow, the dominance, and we talked about this at length. Jillian's landed a takedown in her last 11 fights, now her last 12 fights. Excuse me, that's wrong. Marina has been taken down in her last 11 fights, now her last 12 fights, and Jillian's landed a takedown in her last 9 fights, now her last 10 fights. And you look at Marina's current form, had lost 4 or 5 going to this, wasn't as hungry. So this time she didn't have the will to fight back when she got taken down in those spots. And Jillian, wow, biggest win of her career. It's time to keep moving Jillian up. Like, one thing about Jillian, she might be one-dimensional, but damn, is she good at that one dimension. And Marina, it's been an honor watching your career. I've always loved watching your striking. Very grateful for the amazing fights you put on for us, the bets you've cashed for us. And it's just always been a pleasure watching your fights. So thank you, Marina Rodriguez. So Quang Lee submitted Gaston Bolaños. I was very happy. You got a performance of the bonus. Hey, Quang Lee, you didn't take any damage. I mean, to be exact, you took 5 significant strikes. Coming to Atlanta and fight Malcolm Wellmaker June 14. Listen, you're both coming off performance of the night finishes. I think that's the fight to make. So I want to see either Malcolm Wellmaker versus Quang Bang Lee in Atlanta, or Malcolm Wellmaker versus Carlos Vera in Atlanta. Make it happen. Which one would y'all rather see? Dante Mays and Steve Peterson. Shout out Steve Peterson for the domination. 9 takedowns. Damn, son. Good job. Juliana Miller and Petrovic. Happy for Miller getting back on track, and Petrovic needs a lot of work. Like, does she know what a whizzer is? Does she know what an underhook is? Does she know what a sprawl is? Does she know what feet on the hips are? Like, my God. Yeah, she needs a lot of work, but shout out to Miller, overcoming adversity and the first 2 L's and coming back to get this one. One last thing before I get out of here. Not to call anyone out, because I like, y'all are all my friends, but I saw a lot of people taking massive victory laps on the Bo Nickel fight, talking about this and that. No big deal. Like, we're all allowed to celebrate our wins, right? Like, if I'm going to take a victory lap on something, it's because, these are the 2 reasons if I'm going to take a victory lap. You rarely see me taking victory laps. Usually I just report my win or my loss. We move on. But when I do take victory laps, it's for 2 reasons. Number one, I had gotten an insane amount of heat, pushback, or literal shit talk to me about the pick. And number 2, I, of course, bet the pick with my own money and, backed up my opinion at the betting window and, put my balls on the line. So again, only time I'll take a victory lap is when I've actually bet something and when I got insane amounts of heat for it. Not just a little, I'm on the opposite side. That's not heat. It's like, oh, that's a bad bet. Oh, that's a donation. Oh, you're going to lose money. Oh, you suck at betting. Oh, yeah, motherfucker. That's when I'll take a fucking victory lap. Dude, I saw multiple people, not just one, multiple people taking insane victory laps on the Bo Nickel Rainer de Ridder fight. And then I click on their tracked bets, their bet MMA tips profiles, and they don't even have a bet on Rainer de Ridder. I was like, the way you're talking, I thought for sure you just went out there and max bet this guy. They don't even have a half unit shot on him. So my opinion, just mine. If you're going to talk big and take a victory lap, talk down to people about how stupid they were for picking Bo Nickel, and how Rainer was the obvious this, obvious that, and in hindsight it was, of course. At least maybe bet on Rainer de Ridder. I'll just leave y'all with that. Anyways, my friends, I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to be back Wednesday night with 3 special guests. Should I go ahead and leak the guests? Should I go ahead and leak the guests? Well, the fight card is in Canada, so I got 3 Canadian guests. I got the 2 best Canadian journalists on planet Earth, Aaron Bronstetter and James Lynch, and then I got one of the best MMA bettors on planet Earth from Canada, Dravi. So you got 2 journalists in James Lynch and Aaron Bronstetter, and then you got 2 gamblers in me and Dravi. So I think it's going to be a badass 4-man panel Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Eastern time, live on Half the Battle. Make sure you all smash that like button, hit the subscribe, leave me a comment. I'm so grateful. Share if you feel inclined. I love you guys very, very much. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.